Let's be clear. What's going on in the Gulf is a disaster. It's unconscionable. I'm running for the United States Senate because I think there's a role in government in our lives. But what they're doing now doesn't work. They're incompetent, and we're all suffering. As an example, did President Obama marshal all of the effective forces that he could? Did he commandeer the tankers? Did he commandeer the National Guard? Did he get the best minds together? I don't think so. It took him 50 days to see the victims of that BP disaster. I believe in small government. I also believe that BP, because they've caused this problem, have to pay for this problem. And if they go bankrupt, so be it. I believe that's the lesson of the free market. Now, how it really works in real life, I'll give you a simple example. My office in Portsmouth, New Hampshire is an old building. We wanted to put an elevator in it. We wanted to make it ADA acceptable for disabled people. We went to the local building department and asked to do it. They said we couldn't because it's an old building. So one group saying you have to make your building ADA accessible, and the other part of the government saying you can't. That sort of regulatory mismanagement is what's going on all over America. Our town in Rye, New Hampshire is one of the most difficult places to build. I just tried to build a small project last year. We had to get 19 permits before we could go to the planning board, and we never made it to the planning board because of the regulatory red tape. I see it every day as a business person. What we need to do is have an efficient, competent government. You know what's going on in the primaries and the local elections in the most recent days speaks to competence. The voter wants somebody to go to Washington to run an efficient, small, capable government. And that's what we need, and that's what I'm about. Thank you.
Kelly Ayotte, you have 1 minute to answer the question.
We need effective regulation, not over-regulation. And absolutely, BP needs to be held accountable for any of the shortcomings or cut corners that they made in the drilling expertise here. And we need to make sure that the regulations we have in place are effective. Adding layers doesn't necessarily mean that they're more effective. And we're a small business family, Joe and I. Joe has a landscaping and snow plowing business, and we have repeatedly seen mandates come down from Washington that are passed down to the state that all they do is add paperwork. They don't add more effective public safety regulation. So when it comes to BP, we should find out what happened. We should make sure it doesn't happen again. Make sure that people who are regulating this area are competent. But make no mistake, there are regulations passed down from Washington, and what I hope to do for business is to make sure that the regulation that's in place is effective, that we don't continue to add layers of paperwork for our small business people, because it just makes it harder for them to put people to work.
Thank you, Kelly Ayotte. Over Lamontagne, 1 minute.
Thank you, Chris. Carolyn, that's an excellent question because it brings to light the balance we have to achieve between the role of the federal government and where it's appropriate and the role of the states and the people and where that's appropriate. And the Constitution is what guides us. Where this oil well is located is in waters that are within the jurisdiction of the federal government on the outer shelf. It's an area that the federal government has the responsibility to oversee. And the federal government should be the entity, the governmental entity, ready to respond with a rapid response. The president was AWOL. He should have brought together the captains of industry, the best minds in our government, to deploy a team that would have responded very quickly. In addition, he should have been ready to suspend rules and regulations that have impeded states like Louisiana that want to construct temporary barrier reefs. That's the role of the federal government. But because we define something as a crisis does not give constitutional basis for us to intervene. The reason that we would intervene is because of the jurisdictional basis of these waters and where that's located. And it's a very important question you've asked.
Certainly proven that they don't know how to manage one. President Obama is 18 months into his first leadership position ever, and he should have realized before the end of day one that this was his new #1 priority with all this Gulf oil gushing out into the water. He should have called together before the end of the first day all of the great minds, the civil engineering experts, the petroleum engineering experts, the military experts, and said, before tomorrow evening, I want to understand all my options. I want to understand what are the probabilities of success, what are the risks of failure, and he should have had operational plans and contingency plans in place. This disaster has done more harm to both our ecology and our economy in 52 days than probably decades of carbon credits could ever rectify. And the administration squandered the first 6 weeks. They were beating Wall Street executives up. They were resurrecting the don't ask, don't tell. It wasn't until Matt Lauer got him on TV 2 days ago, and we were treated to the presidential profanity and pointing fingers at others. Do you know he has still not had a conversation with the BP CEO? How is that possible? If this was a Republican president, I believe they'd already be talking about impeachment. We need different leaders in Washington. This is just unforgivable what's happened to our ecology and our environment. We have to have better leaders in Washington because that's what government exists for these moments.
Thank you, Jim Bender. The next question.